items for the teachers, we have to use it on this. And so that's just one of the basic things we're looking at. RB Godley, the building that we're currently in, again, we're really pushing on the rooftop life cycle. One of the things we did that the board was gracious to do over the summer is this. RB and the 6th grade campuses were two of the buildings that they went ahead and approved that use of fund balance for. And so I didn't know if you see on the way in, but you can see on the way out, we have some construction going on over here. There are some, again, those specific areas. That picture where the water was taking, it hadn't rained in 2 weeks. And so there's still water sitting there. So obviously there was an issue, and so we're taking care of that right now. And that will be done before the school year. So it will be done either by the end of this week or by Tuesday, hopefully. And then the 6th grade campus. So again, looking at the rooftop units, and we've seen, again, some of these items. This is another one of the ones that the board approved that we went ahead and already finished. So that project has already been completed over there at the 6th grade campus. But more than rooftops, if you look at that AC unit, one of the things that we're coming up against is we can no longer find the parts or have the units worked on currently because technology has increased, and so a lot of these items are no longer feasible to be either repaired or add freon, different things of that nature. And so when they go out, they essentially have to be updated, or hopefully before they go out, we can update them. So just wanted to share a couple of things with that. So just take a few minutes, actually probably 30 seconds to a minute, turn to your table mates and just kind of discuss maybe something you didn't necessarily know about those facilities. Maybe about 20 more seconds. You know you're using the CFO's computer when the calculator pops up, just like randomly. All right, does any table have anything? Did a neighbor share anything that you wanted to share?
We talked about, even some of the areas they've been patched, so when you're trying to patch them more, you can't put any more layers on the way stuff is adding, just years and years of trying to hold it together. Taking its toll.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody heard, and I'll pass the mic next time, but we've had it repaired. Our maintenance team, our director of maintenance is here. They've done a great job of keeping up what they can and doing the regular maintenance on it. But again, it comes to a point, like Dr. Carl said, that we can only repair it so many times before it has to be replaced. All right, well, I wanted to get into a little bit about how school finance works and do a broad overview of it. I promise I'm not going to go too in-depth because I get excited about it, but I know you might not necessarily. So, best way to explain it is that there's essentially two buckets of money that we as a school district get. We have our M&O, which stands for maintenance and operations, and our INS, which stands for interest and sinking. Our maintenance and operations bucket is mainly used to pay salaries, upkeep the facilities, make sure we have transportation for the kids, insurance, utilities, different things of that nature. Then our interest and sinking, or we can call it debt service, is for our capital projects. So when the community approves a bond, we receive those funds, and then we have to pay those back. And so that's what our INS is for. So there's two different rates, tax rates. You can see our maintenance and operation rate is 78.69 cents, and our interest and sinking debt service rate is 50 cents. So for the last year that we were in, the 24-25 year, our total tax rate was $1.28. From the time, I'll go back in a second, from the time that we started back in 2007, our tax rate has gone down significantly. So we started at $1 in 2007, and now we're looking at being right at 61 cents on our Tier 1 rate. So it's gone down to almost 40 cents. And so one of the things with that is, with our tax rates continuing to come down, trying to give any support that we can for the homeowner and taxpayer. But we have different costs associated with the school district for each year. This is our 10-month budget from this last cycle, our 24-25 school year. And so you can see we have staff costs, which are our payroll costs, our maintenance, utilities, and insurance costs. Then we have our JCSSA co-op. If you don't know, we're the fiscal agent of the JCSSA Special Education Co-op. So there's 4 districts that are in that co-op, and we all share the costs associated with it. We are the largest in that co-op. We're just over 52% of the co-op now. So a lot of the expenses are beginning to fall on us. Then we have campus and curriculum, so items specifically related to the classroom. And then we have transportation, safety, technology, and then other costs, which are a variety of items. So what I wanted to do is I have some things I want to pass out. So as a table, it's kind of going to be hard. You might make two or three groups at each table, but each of these 6 categories on any given year increase a certain percentage. So what I want you to do as a group is to go through these 6, so staff costs, maintenance, our JCSSA, campus curriculum, transportation, and other costs, and assign them the average increase per year that you think that these go up. So you'll have 6 different ones. You'll have 1 to 3%, 2. staff cost makeup within this budget is a little bit different because, again, we have our JCSSA co-op. Well, through that co-op, we have staff that we pay that work here at Godley ISD. And so when we look at, and they're paid through our co-op payment. They're not technically on our payroll, but if they were on our payroll, then we would have about 82% of our entire budget is just payroll. Then we have our maintenance, JCSSA campus. And so we're going to go through the first one, 2 to 4% each year increase in staff costs. So again, one of the things that we try to do. Well, I guess let me ask this: how many had that right? Okay, you had it and then changed it. Okay. So we have over 550 employees got the ISD, and so we've been very proud as a district that since COVID and since the ESSER funds came in, we did not have to lose any staff through attrition. We didn't have to lay off any staff. The administration had been really good at making sure that we prioritize staff, gave them at least step raises, and try to keep them employed. So that represents about 2 to 4% each year. Maintenance, the biggest one is on the end. Our insurance goes up anywhere from 10 to 20% each year, so when we add it together, that's our biggest one. So 12 to 15%. How many of you got that? How many of you got that one? Okay, just a little bit. And so a lot of these items are fixed costs, right? So we have to pay our utilities, we have to pay our insurance, we have to make sure that there's toilet paper and paper towels in the bathrooms. And so again, one of our biggest fixed costs that we have to have each year moving forward. Our JCSSA co-op already mentioned that we're growing at that each year. And so as we continue to have our special education program and students come in, that payment just keeps getting larger and larger. How many of you had that one correct? Okay, just one. Good job. All right, campus and curriculum. So this is one of the ones that we try to push a lot of funding into. So 5 to 8% goes directly back into the classroom and then increase each year. How many of you had that correct? Of course, the chief academic officer had that one correct. So
One we got right.
that's right. Good job, Dr. Bauer. All right, and then we have transportation, safety, and technology. Another piece that is generally required that we have to have each year. About 1 to 3% is what we currently push back into that. So how many of you got that one correct? Nobody. All right, so that's the first one we went over on. And then we have our other costs. So somebody asked other costs. So these would be any costs associated with nursing, counseling, not salaries, but those athletics, administration costs, different things of that nature. 69% that those go up each year. How many of you got that one correct? One. Okay. All right. So we only have one. We only have one to go. For over. Real quick, I'm going to call on each group, talk for about 30 seconds, pick a category that was the most surprising to you and why. 30 more seconds.
Are you moving back? Oh, you know that's where you're at.
All right, so it sounds like all the conversations are wrapping up. Any volunteers? Any volunteers?
We were surprised that transportation, safety, and technology was the least amount of increase just because of those three words, you know.
Absolutely, great point. Anybody else? Same here. Okay. I really liked y'all's answer.
So I'd ask the question of, is our transportation, safety, and technology as low as it is because we've been neglecting putting funds there, and we continue to neglect it by only giving it 1 to 3%. Based on what I see, there's not enough buses, and I mean safety. We watch the news every night, and then technology is the future. So is that a chosen decision to make it the smallest and the least improved upon?
Yeah, so it's a great point. So a couple of things associated with that. One of the things when we looked at it in our team, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but on the needs assessment that you as a group did last time, those were a couple of items that you talked about. You talked about technology. You talked about adding transportation, different things of that nature. When we have 80% of the entire budget, over 82% that's associated with payroll, and then when we add in maintenance, utilities, and the co-op, that money ends up not going very far. And so at the end of the day, we probably on any given year have about $2 million of truly flexible funding that can kind of go to different programs. Some of those programs are associated with the classroom. So some might agree that that number is a little bit lower because we have to have those items in the classroom. And so it's not necessarily a intentional, but it's through the mechanism of how we're funded and making sure that we keep the priority in the classroom. And so this is a great point. Anybody else? Or anybody else have a different one? Okay. All right, well thank y'all for going through that exercise. I talked a little bit about how we were funded. So we're funded through student enrollment and attendance. So when we have to estimate how much staff we're going to have each year, we have to go off of how many kids we have enrolled. We have 22 to 1 classrooms of our younger kiddos, and we're proud that we have lower classroom sizes than a lot of districts around, and so we want to try to keep that as low as possible, but we have to do it off of enrollment. The funny thing is that we're not funded off of enrollment. We're funded off of how many kids we have in the classroom. So again, last year we increased that attendance. Our principals and administration did a great job. Our teachers did a great job of communicating with parents and making sure that parents had their kiddos in the classroom, because when they're not there, they're losing out on educational opportunities. And so that increased over 0.5% last year. So we're right at 94.32%, I believe, of attendance last year. So we have to budget off of 100%, but we're only funded off of 94 to 95%. And then we have our property values. So if you're a homeowner or a business owner, you get your property tax bill in the mail, and we take the property values and the tax rate, and that's what makes up our local tax revenue funding. And so I talked about it earlier that our tax rate has continued to come down. So trying to make sure we keep the, on any given year, compressing our tax rate so that generally averages out. So we'll talk about the estate funding and legislative changes associated with some of these. Is the biggest point here is on the left-hand side that state funding has, since 2019, they didn't make any change to the basic allotment. So we've gone over 6 years without any change to the basic allotment, and they added $55 to the basic allotment this last legislative session. To keep up with inflation, it would have been about $1,700 that they would have needed to add to the basic allotment to get us to spending levels that we were at in 2019. I talked earlier in 2007, our tier 1 rate was at $1. You can see over the years that there's been legislative updates to increase the homestead exemption, further compress our tax rate, and then we have upcoming in November another opportunity for us as a public to vote on an increased homestead exemption, taking it from $100,000 to $140,000. Biggest thing here is when property taxes increase, there's an inverse relationship with the state. So the more money that we receive on the local side, the state actually pays less. So the winner in all of this is the state, and they can utilize that budget for other things. Just because values increase does not mean that we as a district get more money. Back in 2019, when House Bill 3 was written, the intent was to actually try to level out our revenue each year. So if you were a stagnant district or a decreasing district, you've actually lost money since 2019. We've been blessed and lucky as a growing district. We're a top 40 growing district in the entire state by growth percentage. And so that's why we're seeing and being able to keep up so far with the increases. But that's coming to an end. We're quickly out of space. We saw earlier, and we'll continue to run out of space. This is just a quick history of the tax rate. You can see the blue bar is our M&O, maintenance and operations tax rate, and then our orange bar is the INS rate. You can see there's a little bump in 2021 as a community. Y'all voted for a voter-approved tax rate increase to help fund additional increases of salary for teachers. And then you can see in 2023 there was over an 18-cent drop in the tax rate associated with some legislative changes. All right, so one of the next things we wanted to do is bring up our financial advisor, Jeff Robert, and have him kind of explain to you what all of this means as it relates to future planning. So Jeff, if you want to go ahead and come up.
Thank you, Spencer. My name is Jeff Roberts with Hilltop Securities, and I serve as financial advisor to districts helping on municipal bond issuances. I've actually been working with Godley ISD since 1997. And what I have today for you, I don't know if many of you were at the previous meetings that I presented at, we run kind of capacity scenarios, and we do that based upon assumptions. We did get an actual value number, so we're not assuming that 2026 value, but what I put together here are just kind of the assumptions I'm using for the model to show you how much we feel like we can issue and stay at the current 50-cent tax rate, and what that maximum amount would be. So on this first page, that 2026 value, that includes the increase in the state mandatory homestead exemption going from $100,000 to $140,000. I didn't put this on there, but it actually also includes the over 65 and disabled persons exemption going from $110,000 to $200,000. And if not for both of those, the taxable value would have been about $100 million higher in 2026. So you combine three things. One, Senate Bill 4, which raised the mandatory exemption to from 100 to 140K. Senate Bill 23, which raised the over 65 and disabled from 110 to 200. And then also keep in mind that Johnson County Appraisal District stuck with their reappraisal plan, which means they kept market value static on existing homes in the county. And Tarrant County did the same thing. And even with that, so with all of those factors, if you will, kind of working against the tax base growth, the district still grew 3.2%. So we would have grown 8.5%. That number would have been even higher if not for the Johnson County, Tarrant County reappraisal plans. There was a bill that was passed that was going to do away with their ability to do that reappraisal plan. However, I think it's going to be litigated to determine whether or not those two county appraisal districts have to follow that. So these are the assumptions that I've used. For the tax base. So my graph didn't come over very well. So at the top, what we feel like we could do is $120 million, $30 million a year over a 4-year period. And that's again based on those growth assumptions on the prior page. The graph legend didn't print there, but the black line with these values show what your existing debt would do in terms of an INS tax rate. So your INS tax rate at the top line would be 50 cents, and it would come down from there as a result of tax-based growth. The blue line is if you did this 30 million, 30 million, 30 million over 4 years, would be what the tax rate would be again with these assumptions. Now, if for whatever reason we grew more than what we're showing here, that blue line would gradually come down, just like you see the black line coming down. If it grew less, then instead of issuing 30 million over a 4-year period, it might take us 5 years. Because of the process that we go through every year, especially for districts at 50 cents, is that in late July, the districts get their certified taxable values, and at that time, we determine based upon the value growth, how much can we afford to issue for the coming year. So again, this is the scenario. Feel comfortable with these assumptions, assuming that the legislature doesn't continue to raise the homestead exemption, and also the probability that both Tarrant County Appraisal District and Johnson County Appraisal District will have to go back to revaluations or reappraisals every year like the other counties in the state. So I don't know if that answers any questions you might have. I'd be happy to answer any if you have any.
All right, my name's Alex, by the way. I'm here to talk a little bit about school or commercial construction, and just real quickly how that kind of differs from if you were to do a project at your own house, so project construction. So if you had something you wanted done at your house, you kind of come up with a design, you get a couple of quotes from some contractors, and you select one, right? Well, it's a little different here when you're dealing with public funds, which is what we're doing with public schools. So obviously the first thing would be to pass the bond, which in the last meeting we were able to collect some of the wants and needs that you all wrote down. So taking those into account, we have to kind of program that and then work backwards, come up with an estimate, because in order to pass a bond, you have to have an amount to go for. So after the bond's passed, design begins, and the design is done with intent to stay within the budget that was set in the bond. And then you get to go out and get bids to actually get a hard and run those projects. So as I said, generally, construction projects for school are paid with tax dollars. We have a lot of codes that we have to meet. So even some of the things that we saw on the needs that were written down on renovations, and even those can get tricky. It's not as simple as just replacing flooring and paint. Sometimes the amount of renovation can trigger different regulatory issues like ADA upgrades, or even kind of the energy efficiency upgrades, and definitely security upgrades that we're seeing a lot today. And one of the big things that we see questions kind of the cost of just general items that go into construction. This is a good example. If you think about the number of times that you open and close maybe your bedroom door at home, maybe it's half a dozen times a day. Well, a school door is going to get hundreds of cycles every day. So everything's got to be beefed up for that. You've got, heavier hinges. You've got door hardware that's able to take that beating throughout the day. And occasionally, depending on where it is in the design, it might have to be fire rated. And a lot of times now, we have attack resistance that's having to be built into those things. When we talk about costs, we talk about hard costs and soft costs. You'll hear those things interchanged. And hard costs is usually the structure, the built element, and the soft costs are things that are added after the fact, fixtures and furniture, technology, things of that nature. And then, of course, when we're putting together these estimates, thinking ahead, sometimes the design process can take up to a year depending on what the project is. So you have to forecast that out and kind of think of what that's going to cost in a year. So a little bit of gazing into that crystal ball.
Okay, you feel really educated now? You've got finance down, like Finance 101, you figured out how what construction works. Well, let's talk about the projects. that you all identified the last time. When you were here last, we said we were going to focus on that long-term vision. What does that 10-year vision look like for Godley ISD, and what are the things we need to address? So we talked about elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, technology, security, fine arts, athletics, all of those things. And so what we've done in the last couple weeks in between the meetings is that we met with your leadership team. We looked at light projects in your area that we could get some square foot pricing and some things like that. And so we've actually come up with a pricing list, which is why we talked about the difference in private and public construction before you're getting this document in your hand. So we're going to kind of walk you through these. You're getting a copy that you can look at because I know it's hard to see on the screen. And we want to answer your questions before we kind of have some group discussion about that and some individual thought time. So I think almost they're coming down the table. Let's talk a little bit about what you identified as the needs and the wants for the future of Godley ISD. So let's start with elementary. So some of you said we have a lot of growth coming. Our elementaries are close to capacity. We need a new elementary school. So if you talk about a new elementary school, the need would be to house about 750 students to take you through that demographic enrollment information we talked about. And so we priced that out. What would the cost of that be? How many square feet would that building need to be? And so you see that there. You also see updates to this building. Some of the roofing updates, some of the RTUs, that kind of thing. That's based upon the roofing assessment that was recently done. You see a cost for that. Very similar updates to legacy. But also then some classroom additions. So if you add classrooms now, there are rules and laws that require that you add a storm shelter because you are north of the wind line. I didn't know that was a thing until recently. But you are north of the wind line, and so you have to have a storm shelter if you're adding capacity to buildings in order to meet current code. And so that classroom addition would also be a storm shelter to house all of the students and staff at that building. And so you see cost amounts for, and that's why the square footage number is more, because you have to reinforce those walls in a different way. Doors, walls, you have to have a generator, all of those kinds of things. So that's why that square footage cost is a little bit more. So you see in addition to legacy and RBG. Some of you said, hey, we would like foreign language programs at the elementary school. Not necessarily a facilities thing, but definitely a district consideration. And so we would invite you, if you have additional comments on some of those, to write that in a few minutes when we have some time for that individual reading. Going to middle school. There are a lot of different thoughts about the middle school. And so let's kind of walk through these, because obviously you wouldn't do all of these. You would kind of make some choices. So the first one is a middle school addition with a storm shelter to bring the capacity of that building up to 1,200 students. Again, we use that demographic study to come up with that number and how many square feet you would need to add. There would be a storm shelter as a part of that addition because we're adding capacity to the building. So the middle school existing renovation for 6th grade. So you see a cost amount for that. You also have a 6th grade campus renovation. Now some of the questions were if we just renovated that campus but didn't have the space to add, there's some questions about what that would look like going forward because you will very quickly be out of capacity at that campus. But I think that's a discussion. Right now, we're kind of dealing with what are our current needs and then what are our current wants. And so I think there's two sides of that, and you're going to have some time to really think through and talk about that. And then another district consideration was foreign languages at the middle school. Okay, high school. There was some conversation and some comments on the pages that we collected about our Performing Arts Center. This Performing Arts Center is modeled around the square footage of a facility such as that one in Stephenville. So if you're familiar with that, it's a school facility. It's not a public performing arts center or anything like that. It's a school-based facility where you can do one-act play and have band, choir, all of those kinds of performances. Career and technology updates. So an ag board addition, that was something that was discussed. And so we looked at that amount. A heavy renovation or some additional space for the culinary arts, if there was going to be growth in that program, or just a standalone addition. The standalone addition would include like a cafe, like a student cafe, that was going to be something that students were going to be a part of, but all of the kitchen equipment, all of the things that would go along with that. So again, your price per square foot is a little bit higher there. And then a district consideration was that partnership with Hill College to really add additional credit and different programs. And then the last part is the district part. So there was a lot of comments about classroom technology. And so that kind of came out in the finance discussion too. Hey, there's some campuses that have better technology than others, and we'd like for it to be equitable across the district. And so what some of the campuses have are the BenQ touchscreens that are interactive for teachers, for students, to help support instruction. And so there's a number for how much that would cost, and actually upgrading the data wiring in addition to that. And so it's bringing that technology to where it would be more equitable across campuses. You said there was some traffic issues. I feel like in every district there's traffic concerns. So the first step in that is to do a traffic analysis. And so we included cost for a traffic analysis, and then some cost for new paving. There's no way to know exactly what that traffic analysis would bring, but we wanted to include some of that resolving the issue, and that's kind of an average of kind of what we've seen in other districts. Transportation, the buses. You talked about needing buses, that you're having to spend more on maintenance, and you have a growing population, and so you need additional routes. And so that's the cost for 24 buses. And then a transportation facility to help take care of that fleet and of those buses. You'll notice here, we not only have that construction cost, that hard cost, but there's the soft cost of, we always say if you turn the building upside down and everything that falls out, that's that soft cost, the furniture, the fixtures, the equipment. And then there's an inflation number projecting out to, if the board did decide to call a bond, and then you would need design time and then construction time. So that is an all-in budget with inflation. Obviously, like Alex was saying, we would need to, we're using based upon current projects that are going on in your area. That would be refined once we entered into design. But remember, a bond is authorization to basically have a budget for projects. And so the district would then be authorized to take out loans should the board decide to call a bond and then the community pass a bond. So district considerations for the high school level or for the district level were mental health programs and then an additional SRO. So again, if you have specific comments about that, we would welcome that. Any questions about the things that are on this list that you all identified and how we priced it or anything like that?
The middle school says additions, but it does not say renovations. The middle school needs renovations.
Okay.
So where does that fit in?
So renovation in the second line? I'm assuming, do you want to talk to that?
Sure.
I think it's in that second line. I probably didn't explain that as well.
Yeah, so under the middle school edition with storm shelter, there's a line for existing renovation for 6th grade.
But we're not 6th grade. Middle school is 7th and 8th grade. It's a completely different campus.
So if 6th grade, if there were to be an addition to house in 7th and 8th grade, would be over there and then renovating the existing for 6th grade. So some kind of combination of that, it would take a combination of two.
Because 6th grade is going to outgrow their building really quick. So the thought was, current middle school where 7th and 8th grade are, becomes a 6th grade campus, and we build 7th and 8th grade wings. So we can still keep them separate, but they can still come together for efficiency, like 4 languages and that sort of thing. That was my thought.
So the 6th grade is not across the street anymore, 6th grade is at the middle
Because
school.
in a few years, they're going to go outgrow that building, and there's not really much to do.
And so there's kind of options for both, but I think knowing that 6th grade would outgrow fairly soon.
So I guess to that, does that 4.4 million cover the things that need to happen for 7th and 8th grade and adding 6th grade? Or do you have to do the 63 to get 7th and 8th grade up to speed and then do 6th?
So in order to bring that campus to a capacity of 1,200, you really need to do both if you want to touch the existing and add.
So 1 and 2.
Does that make sense?
So 1 and 2 need to happen.
Ideally, but that's your choice. We could also do an addition without renovating current. But if you think it's a need for us to do both, and that's what you're gonna kind of add some comments and rating, prioritizing things, but they're not mutually exclusive. You could just renovate existing, or you could just do an addition, but you're going to have to think about what to do with 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Okay? You wanna add? 550.
Capacity right now is 550. So just to kind of piggyback on this a little bit, this is similar to kind of what we did with Legacy. So the board gave us approval to purchase actually this property right here, right out in front, this house. And what we did is we renovated that house to house 8 to 9 staff members, which opened up 5 different classrooms at the Legacy campus. If we would not have done that, if the board would have not approved that for us this year, then I know, talking to the Legacy principal, we would have already been out of space. We probably would have had to transfer students to other campuses that they wouldn't necessarily be able to go at that campus. And so that's not necessarily available for us to do at the 6th grade campus, which is why we're looking at potentially moving them over. I also wanted to talk, if you want to go to the next one real quick, one more. So the additional SROs. If you didn't know, again, the board gave approval to hire additional SROs. We actually doubled our force this year, and the plan is to do that again next year. Not necessarily double, but continue to add into the safety and security part.
Good questions. What's your question?
Yeah, I've got some questions about the budget estimates.
Okay.
The thing that keeps coming up in all of these bonds over the last several years has been the cost of these items. And so I guess I would like a better understanding of how we really truly come up with these budget estimates, not just based on what's being built around us, but what we're proposing at the same time, and if that makes a difference. So, for example, the Performing Arts Center, that's at $27 million, a little bit over. Okay. The last bond project, the estimate was, I think, $54 million. And so that was put forward to the public for a $54 million theater, because that's what they said it was going to cost. And now it's 27.8. And so is there, the elementary school, one of the big arguments on the elementary school last time was the elementary school that we had bonded for was more expensive than what Joshua had bonded for their elementary school. I agree. I agree. But that was never truly discussed. That was never truly explained. And so I think if we're going to go through this process, we need to be able to say, this is where the budget comes from, not just because the argument's going to come out. Okay, well, Joshua built their elementary for $27 million, whatever it was. Why is it going to cost $66 million for us? Is it a bigger elementary that we're building? Is it a nicer elementary that we're building? Is it just because of the passage of time? Why did the cost of the theater come down so far? There was one thing in the budget about or in the last bond proposal for a locker room that was going to cost $5 million for a 2,000 square foot locker room. It's easy to go into the community and say, we need these things, and this is why we should vote for it. If we get an explanation as to, this is what it's probably going to cost, and this is why. And so if Joshua is not building as nice of a facility as us, and that's why their bond was so much lower, should we have a discussion about, should we not build such a nice elementary? Should we build the same quality as Joshua? So those are my questions, is when we go out to the community and say, you should vote for this, and someone says, well, Joshua costs $15 million less. I'd like to be able to explain that.
Yeah, so all great points. So a couple things wanted to hit on there. So one of the first things that we did is that we went out for what's called a request for qualifications for additional architects. So we actually awarded 2 separate architect firms so that now we don't just have one. We can only negotiate with one at any given time, but it gives us additional abilities as a school district to make sure we can try to keep those costs as low as possible. The other one associated with the cost is the years. And so if you remember the bonding capacity, we can only sell so much in capacity for any given year. And so on this, for example, $60 million was in 3 years. And so if we were going to purchase or buy something for $60 million in 3 years, we would have to add 9 to 11% of escalation costs each single year. And so I think you mentioned it, absolutely, it's a time thing. So if we can build it today, it will cost less than what it's going to build in 5 years, which is another reason why we've wanted to come to the community and try to just continue to push the point that what it's going to cost today is not going to get cheaper in the future. So hopefully that helps answer some of your questions a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I understand the timing issue. I know a lot of people don't. And it's hard to explain to someone that it costs more if it takes 5 years to build something as if we started now. But one thing I think I would like to know, and maybe this isn't the session we do it in, but what I would like to know is, are we proposing a quality of construction that everyone else is proposing, or are we proposing something more than? Are we proposing something less than? Because there's again, if we're proposing a higher level of quality or construction, then what, and I don't like using Joshua's, but they built an elementary recently, so that's what I'm saying, or are building one. And so are we building something nicer and better than Joshua, and if so, why?
I think I understand that's a valid point, and obviously there are things that drive up the cost of the building. Could be materials, could be amount of space, those kinds of things. These numbers and what we did to come up with the square footage, I mean, that's what's driving these numbers with the square footage, is looking at your average, number of square feet per student, looking at, how your cafeterias run. We've looked at your master schedules and how your buildings run. We looked at those kinds of things to really drill down to that kind of standard of measure for Godley and how many square feet to build the next elementary school or to build an addition. There are also some things that have changed on the Texas Education Agency side on how big a classroom has to be. Like there's additional square feet per student. There's additional square feet in the cafeteria area, the library area. And so we used all of those and then took those other projects to get a price per square foot number, but based upon your square footage in Godley ISD. If that kind of helps explain how we came up with the numbers. As far as, when you look at finishes and things like that, that can add some, but the bulk of your cost is your square footage cost.
Thank you.
Yes, that kind of helps. Good question. What else?
So you said kind of similar, so if you were to rebuild this school, because what's the difference? So if we wanted to say, we want something similar to this, not that fancy, are we talking $100 per square foot difference, or are we talking $400 or $500?
It's really hard to compare because they were built at very different times. So it's hard to compare price per square foot numbers across different bond projects even, because your cost of construction changes. And that escalated even more. I'm not sure when Pleasant View was built, but I think what you want to make sure is you're looking at that same quality of building, and you're looking at that same space in the building, and then we can know, okay, here's the budget, and we're going to design according to your district standards. So it's hard to put a number on that. I don't know if y'all have any other.
I think I can bring that to you next meeting, because we've got that somewhere, because we got that question. It's not as much as you think, it's more designed. I think we can bring that.
Okay. Well, here's what we would really like for you to do. I'd really like for you, I know this is hard, adults are the worst students, I will say. I've been teaching adults now longer than I taught students in the classroom. What I'd like for you to do is first, to take your paper and individually rate where you think things should fall. Let me explain the rating system. So on your left-hand columns, your 1, 2, and 3, 1 is, this is an absolute need. If the board wants to go forward with the bond, this should be included. Absolute need. A 2 is, if it could fit in a current bond, then let's try to get it there. And a 3 is, this can wait. This can be in a future bond proposal. So I want you to rate a 1, 2, or 3 by each of those things. And I want you to start with the individual rating before we talk about group ratings, okay? So try to hold your tongue for a few minutes and do your individual rating. There are pens on the table. If you need one, we can help each one.
Are we?
I take it a lot of you are done with that individual rating. Hold a finger up if you need 1 or 2 more minutes. Okay, we're going to take 2 more minutes for your individual rating, and then we'll kind of move into a group discussion. you're adults, you can self-organize. I would love for you to have 5 or 6 people in your group. And if you are all, you're all going to bring the same perspective, maybe I'm going to say, hey, join a different group, because, it's great to have diverse perspectives in a group. So 5 to 6, self-organize, and then we're going to bring you a larger page, and your goal, you're going to have 9 minutes. See if your group can reach some consensus on prioritizing things. Okay? Ready? Go for it. 5 to 6 in your group.
I didn't think it would be a good idea for me, Chris. Only for self.
Go back here and here for you. It's so much fun to be up there. Our state superintendent got graduated, and Oklahoma's now 50, and it's a great day in Oklahoma in education. So I come down here and it's like I have an opportunity, but I created it's just so funny. But it's just the growth and like, it just, I was like, earlier this week, it's like, wait, like, nuts. And I was like, are you on the site? So, because like, anywhere 15 minutes.
Yeah, there's that maximum.
Okay, give me a pulse check. Somebody in your group raise the number of additional minutes you need. Okay, I have a 3, I have a 5, a 0. Okay, we're gonna go 4 minutes. We're gonna go in the middle, 4 minutes. Remember to keep your budget in mind as you're having these discussions. discussions where it's like there's so many things to weigh, and it's a hard decision. You know you need to be fiscally responsible. You know there are some needs, there are some wants. So what we want to quickly hear, I know we're getting close to our time here, is just tell us what you rated as needs. Tell us what your wants were. And we're just gonna, so everybody point to your spokesperson for your group. Let's see how this goes. Point to your spokesperson. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so each group knows who their spokesperson is. So I'm gonna give you the mic, and we just want you to tell us, what did you identify as your top priorities, your number ones?
Okay, our group said that we wanted to update RV Godley, update Legacy, and add the additions to both of those schools. Then we wanted to do the Godley Middle School addition with the storm shelter, and then add 6th grade with renovations, and also renovations to the 6th grade. And then we wanted our other number one was the career and tech update with the ag barn, and then all of our district things.
Okay. All right. Yes, the transportation, the technology, those kinds of things. Okay. All right. Thank you. So think about, as you hear from other groups, kind of what was similar, what was different. Number ones.
All right, our number ones are update RV Godley, update Legacy, addition to Legacy, and addition to RV Godley. And then under middle school was shelter and the existing renovations to help ourselves be crossed out 6th grade instead of 7th and 8th grade. And then let's see. Oh, district, we did the technology, transportation, and transportation facility.
Some alignment there, some good conversation to be had in those first two, meshing them out. Okay, group 4, what were your priorities?
Okay, we did updates to RV Godley, updates to Legacy, addition to Legacy. We did the Godley Middle School edition with the storm shelter. And then we couldn't rate the other two, sorry. But we would agree with that other group, this existing renovations for 7th and 8th. We did career technology updates, and then we did classroom technology, transportation, and transportation facility.
All right, thank you. Again, some similarities there. Group 6.
So we're different. We've got the new elementary school, the updates to RV Godley, the updates to Legacy, and then we've got the renovation to the middle school, and we wrote in the margins, because that's what we do, that instead of a Godley Middle School addition, that we do propose smaller additions to the middle school to address the immediate need, if there's a possibility to maybe add just a few more classrooms instead of a whole new addition. We also have the Performing Arts Center because it's important and all you people need to vote for it. And then we have transportation for the buses and the transportation facility.
Thank you. Okay, group 5, what were your priorities? We said updates to RV, updates to Legacy, the Godley Middle School addition with the storm shelter, the Godley Middle School existing renovation for 6, career and tech updates, and then everything through the district. Okay. Very similar to another group that I remember. Okay, what about group 1?
So we have the updates to RV Godley, updates to Legacy, addition to Legacy and RV Godley Middle School, addition to storm shelter, Godley Middle School existing renovation for 6th grade, and the buses.
All right, and then one more group. Who's your spokesperson? Group 2.
So ours was very similar to theirs. We did the updates and additions to the elementaries, addition and the renovations to the middle school, the Performing Arts Center, the technology, the buses, and the facility. But we only did half the buses so that it was not 4 million, but only 2.1.
Okay. Working within that budget. So we did hear some similarities. What we want to do from here and where we'll start our meeting next time, we're going to take your individual, if you'll stack your individual sheets on top of your group sheets. We want to process the information both ways. And we'll start there. Because again, our goal is to really prioritize where we spend our focus and where we spend some additional time talking and where we kind of start that discussion next time. Are you closing us?
All right, thank you all so much for giving up your evening and coming and being part of this important discussion. Tonight or tomorrow, we will update the website with the presentation from tonight, as well as the YouTube video of our live stream, and that'll be located at godleyisdfpc.com and available to you as well as the public. And I will send out a meeting notice for our third meeting, so be looking at your emails for that. And we're going to close tonight, and you're more than welcome to disperse. But if you want to stay and see some of the issues here at RB Godley, Dr. Deere is going to provide a tour, and also one of our teachers, who's just started with us last year, Logan Abbott. She has a story to tell about her classroom, and so she can show you her old classroom, which experienced some flooding, and then she was innovative enough to go out and get a grant. And so she had a whole classroom makeover from a private group that came in and did it. She can show you the new classroom, but she can also show the old one and what happened to her. So anyway, if you want to do that, then please meet us over here in this corner, and we'll do that in 3 minutes.